Okay. You ready? Let's do this. You're listening to Explore Magazine's Live the Adventure podcast. This is the podcast that delves deep into the outdoors, will inspire, inform, and get you stoked to explore. And I'm your host, David Webb. Welcome to episode 26 of Explore Magazine's Live the Adventure podcast. I'm your host, David Webb. Anyone who knows me knows I have a dog. His name is Chesterman. I love Chesterman. I love dogs. I always have. Spend a lot of time with my dog, hiking and walking and just goofing around. I also spend a lot of time thinking about his health and well-being and making sure he has a happy and long life. So that's why I'm personally excited to welcome my guest today. Her name's Olivia Saray, and she is a nutrition specialist, dog and cat consumables at the Hagen Group. The Hagen Group is the world's largest privately owned multinational manufacturer and distributor of pet products, based in Montreal. If you have a pet, you very likely know their products. Nutrients brand pet food is one of their most popular products, as well as Canine Preventa for keeping away those pesky fleas and ticks on our dogs, which we outdoors people know is a major concern. But above all, Olivia Saray is an expert on pet health and wellness, and she has some amazing information on how to keep your pet healthy and long-lived and your best friend for years and years and years to come. So stay tuned for a lively conversation with Olivia Saray, nutrition specialist, dog and cat consumables, with a special focus today on dogs. Olivia Saray, welcome to Explore Magazine's Live the Adventure podcast. How are you doing today?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Oh, I'm excellent. I'm looking forward to our chat. I have a dog who eats a lot and gets into trouble, so we're gonna sort some of my problems out, and hopefully some of the listeners can relate. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm from Montreal. I'm based in Montreal.
I'm in Vancouver, of course. We're across 3 time zones and connecting, so I appreciate that. It's a bit later there for you, so you're working late for me. I appreciate that.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to be here.
I wonder if you could tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm the nutrition specialist at Rolf C. Hagen. We're a pet supplies manufacturer. And so my role is really to focus on the nutrition aspects of things. We're a company that makes all sorts of products. We make dog food, cat food, but we do touch in fish, reptile, bird, and rodent too. I focus mainly on dog and cat consumables. So that's dog food and cat food, treats, and all of that. Yeah, I do training for retailers. So we do have retailers that sell our food. I make sure that they know all about our brand of food so that they can inform the consumer properly. I will answer some consumer questions directly too, but it's mostly for training and a bit of research and learning about new products.
When you're going to work every day, what's a day in your life looking like? Are you moving around then? Are you going to a lot of retailers? Are you out of the office a lot? Are you working with animals? Or
yes.
What is a day in your life?
So I drive what I like to call the Nutrients Mobile. It's a Nutrients branded RAV4. So I am on the road every day, going around from customer to customer. I'm lucky enough that I get to travel quite a bit in my job. I was actually out in Vancouver last month. It's really beautiful out there.
Oh, yeah.
But we have retailers across Canada. So I go for training sessions with them, whether it be after hours, we'll host like a dinner and learn type of situation, or just for a casual visit to catch up with retailers that I haven't seen in a while, answer any questions that they may have. Yeah, so really mostly visiting pet stores. I like being out on the road, though my day changes every day. It's never the same, which is something that I really like about this job.
So you travel around all over Canada, all over North America, or where do you go?
All over Canada. So Nutrients is really only sold in Canada for the moment. So I'm really focusing on our Canadian market here.
Why do you do this? Pet food, dog and cat consumables. Why? What got you into this field?
So I've always loved animals since I was a little kid. My first job was working at a pet store when I was 16 years old. I really enjoyed it. And for me, there was never a question that in my life I had to do something that would have to do with animals. Nutrition, I really focused on in university. I went to McGill and we had a separate campus where a lot of agriculture took place, and we had farm animals there. So I really did work a lot with farm animals. But from working in the pet store, I sort of made that connection that I I was more into the pet side of things, but a lot of the same principles apply. And later on in my education, I was able to focus more on dog and cat. So it just kind of came to be naturally.
There are farm animals in McGill, eh? I did not know that.
There are. So it's a separate campus. It's called McDonald Campus, Old McDonald Farm. Yeah. It's a dairy farm. There are also chickens. So we did a lot of animal rearing, like we grew broiler chickens. And the dairy farm is Holstein cows. So it's really a dairy farm. There's milk there. And it's a great opportunity for hands-on experiences.
So that entire campus then is a science-based.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people who go into the agronome. So making animal feed for farm animals later on. I would say that's most people, but there's wildlife conservation that a lot of people go into that at that campus as well. But it is really a science-focused campus, and it's much smaller classes too, which is interesting. And you can do some classes downtown as well, downtown Montreal, and go sort of back and forth. But it's nice because it's a lot more intimate on the McDonald campus.
Where is the McDonald campus really in relation to the island of Montreal, so to speak?
So it's still on the island.
Okay.
It's in Bay d'Urfé, which is actually about 10 minutes from our Hagen head office as well. So it was really convenient for me. Yeah.
And what was your specific line of study?
Yeah. So I studied animal health and disease, a branch of the life sciences. It's a Bachelor of Science. We focused a lot on farm animals mainly, but later on dog and cat.
So health and disease, health, nutrition, same thing to me. Disease, is that something that still comes into your line of work now?
Well, they're so closely intertwined, right? So if your animal has a disease or is not in good health, there are certain diets that can cater to that. They will have special dietary needs, and they're all very closely related. So you need to be able to have like a basic understanding of biology or like mechanisms of pathogenicity to be able to make sure that your animal is getting everything that it needs in its diet and that it's going to stay healthy from the diet that you are making and feeding it. So yeah, especially like we're seeing more of these targeted health solutions for animals. Like I find they're popping up much more and more in the industry. So for specific health problems, like allergies, obesity, urinary crystals, for cats. And there are diets that are coming out that are able to cater to or prevent these types of health conditions. And it's something that's really interesting, even diets that are affecting behavior. So we're seeing a lot of use of like holistic options to treat anxiety in dogs, which is something that I find super, super interesting. Like alpha casosepine, which is a milk protein, a hydrolyzed milk protein, is shown to ease anxiety in dogs. So behavior, disease, health, it's all sort of intertwined.
You said it's about 5 minutes from Rolf C. Hagen. Did you already know about Rolf C. Hagen? Like what was the jump out of your university to your career right now?
So I knew the Hagen company pretty well. The pet store that I worked for is actually one of the founders of Hagen, who owns it now. So he's no longer really tied to Hagen, but he is a founding brother of the company Rolf C. Hagen, very pro Hagen pet store. So they had all of the Hagen products, which I think is definitely important when you're going to this company because we have about 8,000 products. So you need to have a base knowledge for sure. Yeah. So that helped. I knew the company. I knew the Hagen family. And I actually was offered the job the day that I graduated from McGill. So for me, it was, there was no question.
8,000 products.
Yeah.
I was just working on a product knowledge manual with one of our new hires over at Explore. And I was like, wow, there's 28 different lines. So I thought that was a lot. I thought 28 was a lot. 8,000 products. How do you manage that? How do you manage working with a 8,000 item product line?
So I focus really on the dog and cat food, which sort of narrows it down for sure. But like when you're including all of the fish products we have the Fluval brand, the Exoterra brand for reptiles. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone listening has a lizard. I don't have a lizard, but I know from a lot of our readers and a lot of our surveys and a lot of our interest, a lot of our readers have dogs particularly and cats, but we love our dogs in the outdoor community. Dog nutrition, broad strokes. How do you keep a dog healthy?
Yeah, so it can be kind of overwhelming for sure. Like getting a new puppy, not quite sure what to feed it. honestly, every dog is different. That's why there are so many pet foods out there. I would say you definitely need something that's complete and balanced for whatever life stage your dog is in. So there are a lot of foods that are specifically marked puppy, specifically marked adult. And so these foods, you really need to respect that labeling, right? So puppies have different nutritional needs than an adult dog. Even just large breed puppies have very different nutritional needs than a small or a medium breed. So very important. There's different diets with more protein, with less protein. And like I said, we're coming out with a lot of these new targeted health solutions for specific health problems to really cater to that individuality with each pet. Every pet is different. So there's something out there for every one of them for sure. But we do, there is something called AFCO. I'm not sure if your listeners are familiar with it. It's the Association of American Feed Control Officials. And they establish a set of guidelines that you need to respect with regard to growth and reproduction or with regard to adult maintenance. Same thing goes for cat food as well. So any commercially available pet food will respect those guidelines. And you can find that statement under the guaranteed analysis of any bag of food. It'll say what life stage it's formulated for and whether or not it respects those AFCO guidelines.
These AFCO guidelines, you'd find that reputable brands do follow them then, or is it a legal requirement that they do, or is it, or how does that work exactly?
Yeah. So basically any pet food that you're going to find commercially available through a pet store and all of that will respect those AFCO guidelines. Okay. You're seeing some of the exceptions with some new raw foods and all of that. If it doesn't say that, it'll say on the pack that it respects AFCO guidelines, you can't put that if it's not true. So as long as it says that, you don't really have anything to worry about. But some of these more trendy, sort of incomplete diets might not. And in that case, you're going to need to supplement, but it's always dangerous, right? It's always dangerous when you start playing with that on your own. You don't know, there are certain vitamins and minerals that your dog needs. There are certain ones that they can eliminate through their body if they have too much, but there are certain ones that are stored in the fat as well that could cause overdose and stuff like that. So not a huge fan of these homemade diets or these trends towards incomplete diets, but then the owner will supplement themselves, because there is a lot of research that goes into making a dog food. And it's, in my opinion, you can't just do it on a whim like that. So nutrition trends that you like or don't like. I've known some people who made their own dog food. I've seen them do it. It looks like a heck of a lot of work. I don't know why they do it, to be quite honest, but that's something not a big fan of. What else? Can you reiterate some of the other trends, fads, things you're seeing pop up that you don't like, or some that you do like? Sure. So yeah, sort of going back to those homemade diets too, there a lot of times, you'll have all this natural variation in raw ingredients, right? So with a kibble or a canned food or any food that's formulated to meet those nutritional guidelines established by AFCO, that's commercially available, you have these vitamin and mineral premixes added. So you know that it's nutritionally complete. Your dog is not going to have any sort of deficiency. With these homemade diets, it can be tricky. You have less consistency within the raw ingredients. So whether you buy something in season, out of season, all of that, it's going to be very hard to meet your dog's nutritional requirements. Same sort of thing with these ancestral diets. So a lot of people think that, my Chihuahua is a descendant of a wolf and he should be eating only raw meat as a wolf would in the wild. I have a little Italian Greyhound and I can tell you he is the farthest thing from a wolf. And while high protein diets and ancestral diets can work for some dogs, for your lazy couch potato dogs, too much protein, it's going to bring a lot more calories too. And it's not always the right decision. So that's sort of another trend that I'm not too crazy about. Mm-hmm. I also, honestly, I'm not crazy about the trend, because it just sort of means that you're following what's going on in the human world, in my opinion. A lot of these trends are just following these human dietary trends. And you have to be very careful when applying the principles of human nutrition to animal nutrition, because most times the same rules don't apply. So for example, sodium. Everyone's so worried about sodium in pet food or in human food. In human food, sure, you have a right to be Too much sodium is not great for humans. But animals, on the other hand, dogs and cats are quite capable of metabolizing sodium at like pretty high levels. So just an example, like up to 1.5% dry matter sodium is safe for dogs and cats, and even higher levels are possibly safe, but there's no data to support that. Most pet foods, you have about 0.3, 0.4% sodium. So I do have a lot of people saying, oh, well, what's the sodium content of the food? And it's like, it's so low compared to that safe level. But a lot of times they're asking just because it's something that we're talking about a lot in human nutrition. But it's not the same at all for your pets. Same thing like vitamin C, for example. That's like humans and dogs have very different requirements. Dogs can actually make their own vitamin C. Humans can't. So little things like that. And even just between dogs and cats, like cats have a dietary need for the amino acid taurine. It needs to be supplemented in their diet, where dogs can actually synthesize most of their own taurine. So every animal is different, and dogs and cats are very different from humans. So the whole idea of applying these human trends to pet food is something that I'm not crazy about. I think that the pet food industry is backed by science and backed by research, and you can't just sort of undermine that with the most like up-to-date human trends.
Growing up, I had a childhood dog, and I remember my grandpa saying something to me one time that he kind of laughed. He's like, I was feeding the dog, and he's like, when I was a kid, we didn't feed the dog. The dog just got like scraps off the table and drank milk from the cows. And I was laughing to myself. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Like in the 20th century, that whole concept of like beyond maybe like the aristocracy of the Victorian ages or the Roman, Caesars or whatever, like most people probably didn't really feed their dogs in that they had like dog food, probably up until like sometime in the 20th century. So that is the one point I always thought about the ancestral diets. I'm like, well, what changed? You know what I mean? Or were we like doing our dogs a horrible disservice for like hundreds of years and now we've gotten better? Because I do sometimes wonder about that ancestral diet. If it's done correctly, could it be beneficial to a dog, or is it just too complicated, too many variables, do you think?
So for certain dogs, I think it's fine. So back in the day too, we had a lot of, the breeds weren't like these designer breeds that you're seeing today. Like even if you look at a French bulldog from 200 years ago versus today, the French bulldogs of today have those very, very brachycephalic faces with the pushed in snouts. And you look at one like from a couple hundred years ago, they don't look like that at all. So we've sort of bred and designed these dogs that tend to have a lot of health problems now that they didn't necessarily back then. And as we were saying before, diet and health and disease is also closely linked, that we have to adapt. If we're going to have these dogs that are no longer wolves, we need to adapt our diet to them as well. It's funny you're saying, like your grandpa was talking, my grandpa too, he's 90 years old, and he always says, oh yeah, my dog, he loved garlic bologna. It was his favorite thing. We'd give him at least 4 slices of garlic bologna per day. And I was like, Grandpa, that's so bad for your dog. Like garlic is like has known toxicity to dogs in like crazy high quantities. Like I don't think that those 4 slices of garlic bologna were killing his dog, but he did mention after that the dog had very bad epilepsy. So I'm like,
Yeah, that's really interesting. I learned about that whole garlic thing not too long ago. So my wife and I have toddlers. They would eat these goldfish crackers before, and like they would throw them all over the place. And I'm like, the dog will just pick them up. It's not that big of a deal. Then I found out goldfish crackers have garlic powder in them, which is terrible for dogs. So I ended up stopped buying them because the dog was getting them no matter what. And I never heard that before. Garlic. I was like, I'd never heard that before. I'm like, oh my God, the amount of garlic my dog's probably eaten, grabbing a piece of garlic bread off the table or something like that. So
I wouldn't be too worried. It's in quite high quantities that it would cause any type of toxicity. But it's funny though. Yeah, there are a lot of things, a lot of table foods that people don't realize are not great for them for sure.
Yeah. And circling back to what you said about the French bulldogs too, I saw this interesting mini documentary a while ago. Just there was this guy who was trying to reverse breed a bulldog back to the way it was like 300 years ago or something like that, or 200 years ago. And it would just reminded me of that because it was so fascinating. Because he said, if you looked at these like images from the Victorian times or even from, the Renaissance, when these English bulldogs existed, they look totally different. They had long legs, they had long snouts, they looked like healthy animals. And now you look at them today, I'm sorry if anyone's, I've got friends with bulldogs, they're wonderful and everything like that, but they have like the snout that's like pushed in and the legs that are kind of turned out and all these things that have been bred into them that I guess are a lot more recent than we realize. You think a bulldog's a bulldog, but yeah, it's just an interesting point that you brought up, that even some of these breeds that we think have been around for a while haven't been the same for a long time. And the evidence is right there in front of us in things like paintings and stuff from like 200 years ago, that you look at this dog, you're like, that doesn't look like, how did I not notice that before? How did I not notice that bulldog had like long, skinny legs when today's bulldogs don't? Yeah, it's just really interesting. Yeah,
absolutely. And we see like a whole industry too, which I'm totally for this industry of pet insurance. But like that didn't exist even like in my parents' time, pet insurance. But like we have all these dogs that are, and cats too, that are so prone to certain like genetic predisposition for health problems. And a lot of it is because of this designer breeding, right? So, I mean, I'm guilty. I have an Italian Greyhound and I love the breed and I love certain purebred dogs and all of that too. But I mean, I do have insurance for my dog, I will say. You've got to assume that there are certain risks that come with it for sure.
Yeah. Pet insurance. We got our dog about 5 years ago, and I'd heard about pet insurance. I hadn't really paid attention because I didn't have a dog since I was a kid. And yeah, when I was a kid growing up, I'd never heard of that concept before. And now everyone has it. And I wondered why. And now you're explaining that a little bit more, that the increase of the designer dog has made it necessary. Some of my friends, again, I'm sorry if anyone's listening with bulldogs again, they've had a lot of health problems. And I swear to God, they would have been bankrupt had they not had that health insurance on some of their bulldogs.
What kind of dog do you have?
I have a lab. He's a lab crossed with an English pointer, actually. So yeah, he's a high energy lunatic, but we love him. Yeah. And the same thing. We got him about 5 years ago. He'll be 5 in September. And I always thought, too, that I would just like adopt a rescue dog from a shelter. Like that was my plan. I'd get a rescue dog. And I don't know, we just kind of stumbled across this breeder that was breeding these dogs. And he's really reputable. He works with a CNIB. And he had a litter of these, what I would have called them like lab mutts back in my day. But apparently they're hybrid retrievers is what they're called nowadays, which is a retriever crossed with an English pointer. I'd never heard of that before. So yeah, I ended up totally just buying my dog, which sometimes it feels like I go to the dog park and people are like, oh, where did you adopt your dog from? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I bought him. What do you want me to say? I
think it's a great thing to do to rescue a dog if you're going to put the time and energy in that a rescue dog may need for training, for like sort of a rehabilitation in some cases, right? Because you don't really know what happened to them before. And you've got to be willing to work with them for sure. If you're not, let's say, and a breed and what you can commit to with certain breeds of dog, it for sure is easier to go to a breeder or to get them from the puppy phase. But it's a great thing to rescue dogs when you're willing to put the time and the commitment into it for sure.
Totally. And that's really what came up. I talked to some agencies and stuff and what they expected of you. And I just recognized my limitations on that. Circling back on nutrition, there's something that the average dog isn't getting that it might need, or flipping that around, something that dogs do eat a lot around the house that they should not. We've got garlic on the list. We'll start with some nutritional deficit you often see in dogs. Is there one that comes to mind?
Nutritional deficit, not a ton, because most people are feeding these complete and balanced diets. There are definitely some supplements that I think certain brands have that can definitely be advantageous, or you can supplement them in your dog's diet along with their regular food. So prebiotics, probiotics, I think are super important. Just an idea of the difference between the two. Prebiotics are basically like the food for the probiotics. So prebiotics are sources of dietary fiber that the dog itself can't digest, but that the good bacteria living in its intestines can. And those good bacteria are the probiotics. We talk a lot about their benefits on digestion. So some of them will make enzymes and help physically break down the food for the dog. They have other benefits too. Some of them will their only job is to clear out the bad bacteria in the intestines, and that will really help the dog reinforce its immune system. So it strengthens the immune system a lot, adding probiotics to your dog's diet if they're not already added in the kibble. And I think it's a fantastic thing. Salmon oil as a source of omegas as well. So omega-3s have these anti-inflammatory properties, going to help the skin and coat, great for brain function, great for kidney function, very important, omega-3s. Glucosamine.
Sorry, glucosamine, did you say?
Yeah, glucosamine. So that's added to a lot of foods, or you can supplement it for sure. So glucosamine and chondroitin are molecules that the body makes naturally. And what they do is they stimulate the production of cartilage and synovial fluid. So that's really going to help keep the animal's joints healthy. Cartilage acts as a cushion between the two bones and the joints, and synovial fluid acts like a lubricant sort of around the joints. But as the pet ages, their body is going to make less glucosamine and chondroitin naturally. So that's why you would want to supplement in the diet to continue that production of cartilage and synovial fluid and keep those joints healthy, prevent things like arthritis. Large breed dogs too, older dogs as well. But large breed dogs are overweight dogs. Just the sheer weight of the dog on the joints is going to use that cartilage much faster, which is why you want to supplement in higher levels in a large breed dog food for sure.
Obesity the lab cross that I have is always a fear of mine because he will eat anything and everything. I wondered what are your tips on making sure a dog doesn't pack on too many pounds?
Pet obesity is definitely a pet owner problem, not really a pet problem. So it's up to the owner to control the portions for sure. You want to make sure that you're following a feeding guide correctly. One of my biggest tips too is to measure your pet food in weight rather than volume. So an example is like dental food. You have a much larger kibble size. So 1 cup of dental food is the same volume as 1 cup of regular kibble, but it definitely doesn't weigh the same. And everything when you're making a pet food, caloric density, everything is calculated using the metric system first because it's much more precise. And then you're converting to imperial, which is a little less precise. Measuring in grams is always much more accurate than measuring in volume. So that's something that I definitely recommend. You can buy these weight management diets as well, where you're going to be feeding sort of the same volume of food, but there's a lot less calories. So usually these diets are higher in fiber, lower in fat, because fiber doesn't contribute calories to the diet like fat does. Fat, you have about 8.59 calories per gram. Fiber, you don't have any calories. So by replacing some of that fat with fiber, you're able to keep your pet full for longer, but add less calories to the diet.
And so would that be looking for a high fiber pet food, or would you do that like by adding like vegetables to your dog food or something like that?
So if you're going to just add stuff, you're still having the same amount of calories from the meat. You'd be definitely looking for like a weight management dog food, which usually means that it's higher fiber, lower fat. Dental food is something too that I think is super important. So it's something that we don't talk about a ton. It's one of the foods that you could always just mix into your pet's regular food too. So many dogs and cats have dental problems. So this is sort of where nutrition plays a role in that health and disease. I think the AVMA, American Veterinary Medical Association, I think the statistic is 75% of dogs between the age of 4 and 8 have like moderate to severe periodontal disease, meaning that it's already infiltrated the gums and can start infiltrating the bone. It's very bad. So prevention is for sure the best medicine. Always encourage people to brush their dog's teeth. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have time or don't do it, or their dogs just don't let them. So a dental food can for sure come in handy there. It's going to clean the back teeth. And what it does is it removes plaque before it hardens into tartar. And once the plaque hardens into tartar, there's nothing that you can do besides a teeth cleaning at the vet to remove the tartar. And a teeth cleaning at the vet, your pet has to be under anesthetic as well. So there's always a risk there.
Yeah, I've seen those teeth cleanings. Again, it was one of those things when I was growing up, I'm like, teeth cleaning? I didn't know anything about that. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and it can lead to a lot of other problems. I'd say definitely cats and small dogs and those brachycephalic, those squish-faced animals are most prone to have teeth problems. So small dogs don't drool as much as large dogs. You have that bacteria staying in the saliva. They also have a much smaller tooth to bone ratio. So once you start to have deterioration of the bone, the symptoms are much more severe. You have much more severe problems. So especially for small dogs, super, super important. And those squished faced animals, they often have overcrowding of the teeth where food particles will stick between the teeth. And that's where that plaque is going to start to form. So
I have to admit, I don't brush my dog's teeth. I guess I'm going to have to start doing that. We've definitely done some like dental chews and that kind of stuff, but brushing his teeth. All right. I'm going to have to see how that takes. That might be an adventure. Yeah. And circling back, what about it? We touched on the garlic sausage, the goldfish or whatever. What are some things around the house that a few more things that a dog should probably never get into?
So I think everybody knows chocolate. Chocolate has theobromine in it, which is toxic. Coffee, tea, grapes, actually. Grapes. Dogs are the only animals with a known toxicity to grapes, which I find very interesting. But yeah, don't feed your dogs grapes. I had a friend actually who said, "Oh, I gave my dog grapes as a cool, refreshing treat in the summer." She had to take her dog to the vet. It was very scary.
Grapes are quite poisonous for a dog then. Like if they ate a bunch of grapes, that could be a trip to the vet.
Absolutely. You want to be careful that they're not chewing on any wires and stuff around the house too. Just be careful, I would say, and stuff outside. So a lot of things outside, like if they're going in, it's kind of a nasty example, but if there's like a dead bird in your backyard, you want to let them get into that. Lake water. And there are a lot of products that can prevent illnesses, like vaccines are super important for your dog. Flea and tick prevention as well. So if you're going outside, there are a lot of things that your dog can get from fleas, from ticks, from other parasites.
Can a dog get Lyme disease?
Yes, they can. So they it's kind of tricky with cats. Cats, we're not so sure whether or not they can get it, but dogs can absolutely get Lyme disease. They don't have these severe symptoms like humans have in most cases. And there is a vaccine for Lyme disease, but you want to prevent these ticks from getting in your house altogether, right? And ticks can also transmit other diseases. So we talk a lot about Lyme disease, but there are other diseases that can be transmitted. Fleas too. Hemobartonella is a pretty severe one that's transmitted by fleas. And these are like Lyme disease is a zoonotic disease. So it can't be transferred from your dog to you, but it can be transferred from that tick that bit your dog that will eventually fall off and can bite you. So prevention is super important. You can prevent honestly, you want to prevent throughout the summer months, but ticks can be present even at 4 degrees Celsius. And so honestly, you could use a flea and tick product for the whole year and it would be best for sure.
Yeah. Over here in Vancouver, I remember my vet early on saying that fleas are a year-round problem for sure in Vancouver. Flea and tick prevention. I think Rolf C. Hagen has some of those products.
So it's called Canine Preventa, ours, and it's a topical treatment. It prevents fleas and ticks, and it will actually kill any fleas and ticks if your dog has them already. It's got 3 different active ingredients. It's got pyroproxyfen, imidacloprid, and permethrin. Very important. It's only for dogs. So permethrin is what will kill ticks, adult ticks, and it's toxic to cats. So very important. It's a dog-only product.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners and readers of Explore magazine take their dogs hiking and on camping trips. So ticks are such a huge concern for us as humans. Constantly, we're talking about ticks all the time. So it's good to think about the pup as well, and some ticks that might get on your dog.
Yeah, and they can be so hard to see too. Like they're so tiny. Once they're really fully engorged with the blood, that they're visible. And once they've bitten the dog, they actually have an anesthetic sort of in their bite. So the dog doesn't even feel the tick bite them. So they're sneaky little buggers.
Horrible things, if you ask me. I'm sure they serve a purpose in nature of some kind, but some of those animals I just can't get behind. I have a question. What's the deal with dogs eating grass? My dog eats grass in the spring, primarily, like new grass, and I don't want him to do it. And I've read about it, and I can't find any information about why they do it exactly. Do you have any insight on that? Is it something you should really discourage?
So it depends. If your area is treated with pesticides, it's definitely not recommended. It's terrible for them to eat grass. It's a source of fiber. A lot of times they'll do it to sort of help digestion. But yeah, you never really know what sort of sprayed on your grass. Here we have a lot of spraying, and or if there's if you're letting your dog roam in the tall grass, again, you want to make sure that they're protected against parasites. But yeah, usually it's just sort of as a source of fiber for digestion.
Would that mean that he was maybe not getting enough fiber, or is this just a dog being a dog?
He could be upset for something else, and he was Maybe if he ate too many goldfish crackers and he was looking to have something to help him digest.
That could be it. Oh God. The mix of having toddlers and a dog that likes to eat a lot of food is a tough one, because the toddlers like to throw food and the dog likes to eat the food, and now the toddlers are old enough to feed the dog. Like they'll sneak him food, and it's just terrible. Things that he's eating all the time that I'm like, I'm sure a piece of toast and peanut butter is not terrible, but it's not exactly dog food either. You know what I mean? So I don't want that to make up a large portion of his caloric intake, because then I'm worried. And maybe you have some insight on this. I know right now with toddlers and the food flying all over the place and the dog that's happy to eat it, there's some amount of food that dog's going to eat, Cheerios or toast and peanut butter or a piece of cheese or whatever. But then I think I'm like, well, if I just keep feeding him the same amount every night, and every time I feed him dinner, he's going to put on weight, because he's increasing that caloric intake. So yeah, I'm just wondering, like, should you be adjusting your food for that? Like, is it all about just watching the dog's weight kind of thing? Like, and if he's starting to put on weight, then you treat it like a human, like maybe a bit more exercise, a bit fewer calories. Is that kind of the mentality that you use there, or how would you recommend tackling that?
Absolutely. So it's definitely tricky with toddlers, because you don't know sort of exactly what he's getting or when he's going to get those extra calories. But I know it's something that people are concerned a lot with for treats. Like, people want to give their dogs treats or for training and all of that. So a great way to do that is to use your dog's food as treats, and you take that out of their daily portion, you carry it around with you, and you give it to him as treats throughout the day. That way you make sure that your dog is not getting those extra calories. And a lot of times too, like, you can have these high reward treats that are a little richer in calories, but then you just sort of have to calculate it. A lot of dog food websites, ours included, Nutrients, have a personalized feeding calculator, so you can really see how many calories per cup and adjust accordingly. Something too that I find interesting, a lot of people ask sort of when to transition to an adult food for dogs. And you mentioned, like, if you see your dog putting on weight, like, that's sort of a great segue, because whenever a dog is considered adult will really depend on the breed of dog. Usually it is around a year old, but like my little Italian Greyhound reached his predicted adult weight at around 8-9 months. Whereas some of these bigger Mastiff dogs can grow up to about 2 years. So that's something that you really want to start transitioning to an adult food when they reach their predicted adult weight, and you find out they're starting to put on weight rather than continue to grow. So once you see you don't really start to feel their ribs as much anymore, you see that they're gaining a couple extra pounds, then it would be time to switch to an adult food.
What about toilet water? Is that bad for dogs?
I wouldn't be too worried. No. It's more like lake water. That's the kind of thing
water
to be worried about. So you can have a lot of different waterborne diseases coming from there. So there are a lot of vaccines that will prevent against those types of diseases, but toilet water doesn't worry me too much.
That's good to know. Good. Very good to know. Yeah, lake water. That's interesting. That's, again, very relevant to our listeners for hiking, camping, and some canoeing people do with dogs. So would it be fair to say that if you were taking your dog to the lake a lot, then you would probably want to look into some specific vaccines for like lake waterborne parasites above and beyond what you might get from the normal regimen?
Yeah, so they're mostly included in your typical boosters,
okay.
Like lepto and all of that. I would do the Lyme too, just for ticks out there. But just make sure that your dog is vaccinated if you're going out into the wilderness with your dog and letting them drink lake water, for sure. You want to make sure that you've got those annual vaccines. You can also do titer tests too. I know there are some people who are worried about over vaccination. I mean, these things are so researched that it's not something that worries me personally. But you can do these titer tests at the vet, and that's where they will test to see if your dog is still has the antibodies from their last vaccine, and whether or not the next booster is really necessary. So that's definitely an interesting option for people who might be a little worried or something like that.
It's a lot of great information. You've studied pets. You're a nutrition specialist at Rolf C. Hagen. You've done animal health and disease science at McGill. People probably pick your brain for some advice. Generalist overarching, like, if you could think of your top tip, you're getting a dog, What's the first thing what's a 1, 2, 3? What's the first things you need to consider? 1, 2, 3, you want to get a dog, or you've gotten a dog. And someone's like, now what do I do? Get the right dog food? Okay, for the puppy. What after that? 2 more.
Okay, so yeah, nutrition, number 1. I'm a little biased, but you want to make sure you're feeding a complete and balanced diet for whatever life stage your dog is at. Number 2, I would say training. So training is really, really important. Start from a young age. I always prefer these positive reinforcement trainings, not into the shock collars and you can definitely correct your dog if they're doing something bad, for sure. But I find the most loving and least anxious dogs are those who were trained with positive reinforcement. So start training from a young age, find a trainer that works for you. You're going to have a wonderful dog later on. What else? Enrichment. So keep your dog busy, keep your dog mentally stimulated, whether it be exercise, take them on a lot of walks. So that's going to benefit their overall health. But mental stimulation too. Like there are a lot of these puzzles that keep your dog mentally stimulated. They're going to forage for their food. It keeps their brain active. And I think that's really important. You see a lot of dogs now, like a lot of people got dogs during the pandemic. They're going back to work as well. And the dog has never been alone. You see so many dogs now with separation anxiety. And there are a lot of things that can fix that. So training is one of them. Enrichment, keeping your dog busy is one of them. And we are seeing these new diets using certain amino acids or alpha casosepine in the food that can actually help too. But to sort of correct those anxious behaviors that we're seeing so often, it's really a combination of those key 3 things: enrichment, diet, and training, for sure.
I feel like there's more dogs in my neighborhood than I've ever seen. There was already a lot, and now there's more than ever before. Yeah, because I know they're very popular while people were home alone. Olivia, that was really, really informative. I really appreciate your time today. You've given me a lot to think about. Thought I had a handle on all my dog's needs, and I don't think I do, even after 5 years.
Well, this was a lot of fun. Thanks so much for having me.
Glad to have you. Thanks a lot. I'm not a scientist, but I love hearing about the science behind nutrition and health and wellness, and when something's backed by research and evidence. And I love hearing about advancements and how we can live better lives. And of course, in today's discussion, how our pets can. I thought Olivia had some great insights today. She's got a wealth of knowledge, tons of experience, a fantastic education, and I really gleaned a lot of information today. In fact, shortly after the podcast, I ordered probiotics and glucosamine for my dog. He doesn't really love it, but it's good for him. I hope you got some good information today to help you and your pup enjoy a lot of years together. Thanks for tuning in. I'm David Webb, and hey, live the adventure.